I paid to be the strong one. That's the part that still stings the most. I was the one with the career, the savings, the good credit score. And somehow I ended up feeling like a fool, staring at a bank app that said I was $50,000 in debt because of a man who couldn't even pay his own phone bill. His name was Mark. I met him at a friend's birthday dinner. Long table, too much noise, people talking over each other. I remember him because he was the only man there who seemed to actually listen when someone else spoke. He sat across from me. Dark blue shirt, sleeves rolled up, that slightly tired look some men get in their mid-40s. He laughed at the right moments. He didn't dominate the conversation. When someone interrupted me, he said, "Wait, I want to hear the rest of what she was saying." That felt rare. I'd been single for a while. I'm not going to dress it up. I was lonely. I had my business, my clients, my little condo. I had my routines. What I didn't have was someone to tell stupid stories to at the end of the day. After dinner, he walked me to my car. He said, "Can I ask you something without sounding weird?" I said, "You can try." He said, "Would it be okay if I asked for your number? I'd really like to see you again, without all the chaos and shouting about fantasy football." I laughed. I gave it to him. We went out the following week. Just a small bar, dim lights, 2 beers. He asked me about my work, and he didn't flinch when I told him I owned my own marketing agency. Most men either got competitive or made jokes about girl boss stuff. He didn't. He said, "That's impressive. You must have worked really hard for that." I liked that he didn't sound threatened. At some point, the conversation shifted. He started telling me about his divorce. He said, "I just want to be upfront. I'm divorced. It's been about a year." I said, "Okay. Was it rough?" He took a breath. He looked down at his glass. He said, "Yeah, she kind of took me apart, to be honest." Then came the story. How his ex-wife was cruel. How she'd cheated on him. How she'd taken him to the cleaners in court. How the judge was biased. How he lost the house, the savings, the car, all of it. He said, "I'm basically starting from zero. I'm staying at a friend's place right now." I remember feeling this tight, sad feeling in my chest. Here was this kind, soft-spoken man who'd been destroyed by a woman who didn't appreciate him. At least, that's how it sounded. I said, "That's awful. I'm really sorry you went through that." He smiled a little. He said, "Most people don't want to hear about it. They think I'm just whining. Thanks for listening." That was the first night. Over the next few weeks, the pattern set in. Dates, long talks, late-night confessions. He told me more and more about how badly he'd been treated, how his ex threw his clothes out, how she called his job and lied about him, how she cut off his access to money. It was always framed the same way. She was cruel. He was helpless. He never raised his voice telling those stories. That was part of what made them so convincing. It felt like he was letting me see this wounded, private part of himself. He'd say, "Sometimes I feel like nobody's on my side." And inside my head I'd think, I could be on your side. I'd been through my own stuff. A breakup that left me feeling like I'd been poured out and thrown away. A father who believed suffering made you strong. I knew what it was to feel alone when things were falling apart. So when he talked about being broke, about rebuilding, about living on someone's couch, it triggered this instinct in me. Help. Be the helper. Be the one who's different from the people who hurt him. The money part started small. One night we were at my place. Takeout containers spread all over the coffee table. His phone buzzed. He checked it, and I saw his face fall. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Nothing. Just overdraft notice." Again. I said, "That sounds like something." He sighed. He said, "My paycheck hit a day late and my car payment bounced. They tacked on another fee. I swear I'm trying, but it feels like I just keep getting kicked." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. I remember the moment. I could have said, "That sucks, I'm sorry." I could have let it end there. Instead, I said, "How much is it?" He shook his head. He said, "I can't ask you." "I'm not saying you're asking," I said. "I'm asking, how much is it?" He said, "It's like $200 with a fee. I'll pay you back next week." $200 was nothing to me at that point. I was billing more than that for a few hours of consulting. So I transferred it to him. He said, "You have no idea what this means." My ex would have laughed in my face. That line got me. Helping him felt like proof that I was kinder, better than this cartoon villain he'd described. The next thing was his rent. He'd finally gotten his own place. Tiny apartment, sagging couch, mattress on the floor. I went over there one night with a bag of groceries and a plant because it looked like no one lived there. He said, "It's not much, but it's mine." A week later, he was pacing around my kitchen. He said, "My bonus didn't come through. The landlord wants the full rent. If I get kicked out, I don't know what I'll do. I can't go back to my friend's place. He just had a baby." I said, "How much are you short?" He said, "For 50. I hate even saying that. I feel like such a loser. I heard that word, loser, and something in me reacted. I said, "You're not a loser. You're just in a rough spot." He said, "My ex used to say I was dead weight, that I'd never stand on my own 2 feet. And then he looked at me, really looked at me, and said, 'You're the only person who's believed in me since all that happened.'" So I wrote another transfer. You can see how this goes. By month 4, it wasn't occasional help. It was a pattern. His car insurance messed up the billing. His boss forgot to submit his hours. His card got compromised and the bank froze his account. Every time, there was a story. Every time, I was the only one who understood. He started saying things like, "I hate that you have to keep rescuing me," but he never actually stopped needing to be rescued. There was a night when I mentioned my savings. It was casual. I was talking about maybe wanting to buy a small house in a year or 2. He went very quiet. He said, "I can't even imagine having savings right now." I said, "Well, I started early, and I've had some good years with my business." He said, "You must feel so safe." I don't even remember what that feels like. I remember feeling guilty for having money. What a twisted thing. It escalated with the loan. He came over with a folder, sat at my kitchen table with this serious expression. He said, "I've been offered a chance to buy into a route at work. It's steady income, good upside, but my credit is wrecked from the divorce. They'll approve it with a cosigner." I felt that word hit me in the gut, cosigner. I said, "You want me to cosign?" He said quickly, "No. I mean, yes, but only if it feels right to you. If it doesn't, I completely understand. I'd never want you to feel used." He brought out numbers, projections, contracts. He'd clearly prepared. He said, "If I can do this, I can finally stand on my own. I can pay back everything I owe you. We can be equal. I hate that you're always the one holding everything together." He framed it as a way to relieve me, to make things fair. I sat there for a long time, staring at the papers, thinking about all his stories. The cruel ex-wife, the unfair judge, the way nobody had helped him. I wanted to believe I was participating in his comeback story. So I signed. The loan was for $30,000. For a while, it felt okay. He sent me screenshots of his supposed route numbers, his progress. He'd talk about future trips we'd take once I'm really on my feet. He'd say things like, "I can't wait to finally spoil you the way you deserve." Meanwhile, my accounts kept shrinking. Rent help, car stuff, unexpected medical bill. The loan payments that were, of course, coming out of my bank each month because they messed up the setup. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that once he stabilized, it would turn around. The turning point came from the most unexpected place. I was at a networking event, tired, half listening to some presentation about scaling businesses. Afterward, I was standing near the coffee table, scrolling my phone, when I heard a woman behind me say his name. Not just his first name, his full name. So then Mark says his ex ruined his life after the divorce. I froze. I turned around. 2 women were talking. One of them, blonde bob, red blazer, was mid-story. The other was nodding with his familiar, soft sympathy. I said, "Excuse me, did you say Mark Dawson?" The blonde looked at me. She said, "Yeah. Do you know him?" My heart was pounding. I said, "I think he might be my boyfriend." Her face changed. Very fast. She said, "Does he have a silver Tacoma? Works in logistics? Claims his ex took him for everything." I nodded. She let out the short, bitter laugh. She said, "Yeah, that sounds like him. The rest is a blur, but I remember pieces." She'd met him on a dating app. Same backstory. Unfair divorce. Cruel ex-wife. Starting over. She'd helped him with a few things. Paid for some stuff until he got his feet under him. The other woman, quiet, dark hair, said, "He told me I was the only one who understood him." I said, "He said that to me too." We compared notes. Dates. Stories. Amounts of money. Together, just between the three of us, we were in over $100,000 of support, loans, guarantees. She said, "There's another woman, by the way. Hannah. He slips up sometimes. Says her name." I thought she was his sister until I saw a text. My stomach dropped. 4 of us. At least. I remember going home that night and opening my banking app. Tallying up transfers, missed investments, the loan balance. It came to just over $50,000. $50,000 that, a year earlier, had been my safety net. Gone. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark. The fridge humming, the streetlight throwing that orange glow through the window. I felt nothing at first. Then it hit, all at once. I'd believed him. Every tear, every sigh, every "I'm trying so hard" speech. I'd believed I was helping someone who'd been hurt. Instead, I'd been funding his entire life while he ran the same script on other women. When I confronted him, he did exactly what you'd expect and exactly what I still somehow wasn't prepared for. I called. I said, "We need to talk." In person. He came over looking worried, like he was the one in danger. He said, "What's wrong? You sounded upset." I said, "I met Emily. And Kara. And I know about Hannah." His face went blank. Then he did this little wounded look. He said, "They're exaggerating. You don't know the full story." I said, "Tell me the full story then. How many women have you told the divorce story to? How many have paid your bills?" He said, "Wow. I didn't think you'd turn on me like this." I said, "Answer the question." He sighed. He said, "You don't understand how hard it's been for me. After what my ex did, I've been surviving. I never meant to hurt anyone." I said, "You didn't trip and fall into my bank account." He said, "I thought you wanted to help. You kept insisting. You said you believed in me. Now you're going to act like a victim." That word. Victim. I looked at him and finally saw it. The hunched shoulders, the sad eyes, the way he always centered his pain so completely that nobody else's reality existed in the room. He'd been playing this role for so long he didn't even have to think about it. I said, very quietly, "Get out of my apartment." He tried one more angle. He said, "So that's it? After everything we've been through, you're just going to throw me away?" Like she did. And for a second, I felt it. That pull. That reflex to say, "No, I'm not like her. I won't abandon you." But I didn't. I said, "You're not being thrown away. You're being cut off. There's a difference." He left. There were calls after that. Long messages. Emails where he alternated between apology and blame. "I'm sorry I wasn't honest. If you hadn't made such a big deal about money, we could have worked this out. I never asked you to do anything. You chose to help." That last one is the one that stuck. Because in a way, he was right. I did choose. Over and over. I chose to open my wallet. I chose to believe his stories. I chose to ignore the little prickle in my gut that said, something doesn't add up here. That doesn't make what he did okay. It doesn't mean it was my fault. But it does mean I had to look at why I was so ready to be the rescuer. A year later, I'm still paying off the debt. My business is fine. I'm not destitute. But I don't have that easy sense of safety I used to have when I looked at my accounts. I also don't have the same relationship with pity. If a man sits across from me now and on the first few dates starts telling me how every woman in his past was cruel, unstable, selfish, I notice. If he talks a lot about how the system screwed him, how bosses are always out to get him, how nothing is ever really his fault, I notice that too. And if I feel that familiar urge rise up to lean in, to say, "I'm not like them, I'll understand," I notice that most of all. What I wish someone had told me, and what I want to say to you if any of this sounds familiar, is simple. Someone who constantly casts themselves as the victim is showing you something important. They're telling you they see the world in terms of people who hurt them and people who save them. And if you step into the savior role, they will let you bleed for them, financially, emotionally, until you have nothing left to give. Then they'll tell the story again to someone new, with you in the villain role this time. I learned that the hard way, but I also learned something else. I learned that my generosity is not the problem. My empathy is not the problem. The problem was believing that I had to prove my goodness by sacrificing myself. I don't do that anymore. I still help people. I still care. I still listen when someone is hurting. I just don't co-sign the loan. I don't hand over my safety net. I don't confuse someone's sad story with proof of their character. And I no longer feel guilty for wanting the person I love to stand on their own feet. Because if he can't even stand, he shouldn't be standing on my bank account.